RC from the Montauk Joiner Shop here. As you can see behind me, I really got a thing for hand tools, and I've endeavored to collect a pretty complete set that can handle pretty much whatever I do in my shop. Some of these tools I would consider essential. I use them almost every day. There are other tools in here that only come out of the cabinet once in a blue moon. They're what I call my one-trick ponies. And the funny thing is, I get questions about my one-trick pony tools almost as often as I get asked questions about my essential tools. So that's what this video is going to be about. I'm going to show you 3 tools in here that are what I consider one-trick ponies. The kind of tools that you don't really need them unless you really need them. And perhaps they can help you round out your hand tool collection as well. So stick around. Okay, so the first of the one-trick ponies I'm going to talk about today are these Veritas cornering tools. They're super simple, and really all they do is create a roundover on a corner. I've featured these in some of my other videos before, so you may have seen them already, but I'm going to show you really quick how they work. And there are some caveats that come with this one. So these cornering tools are super simple tools. They're just a piece of steel that has a little curve bent into each end of it. And each of those little curves has a little oval cutout in it that creates a cutting edge. And those cutting edges are different diameters. So this one is 1/16, 1/8 of an inch, 3/16, and then 1/4 of an inch. And if you want, say, a bead that's 3/16 of an inch, you just work your way up using these cornering tools, starting with the smallest diameter. So what you want to use this tool on, hopefully, is a piece of wood that has the grain running out towards the corner here. If you push this tool against the grain, holy cow, will it make a mess of things, because unlike something like a hand plane or a spoke shave, this doesn't really have like a chip breaker or a mouth on it, so to speak. Or you could argue that the mouth is that hole, but it's a very large one that doesn't really prevent tear out or chipping. So I'm gonna use this as a demonstration piece because it looks like it has a nice even grain run out from both sides, from both faces to the corner. And basically you just run that oval over the corner, just like that. And you can see just tiny little curly Q shavings off of there. So that was 1/16. I'm going to flip it over and do an 1/8 now. And I like to do a couple passes, especially with these larger ones. Just like that. Just in case there's any high spots that I missed. And you know, if you angle a tool a little bit differently, you're going to hit different parts of that corner. And so you may not get everything on a single pass. Now I'm going to go up to 3/16. Just like that. And you can see I have a nice little 3/16 round over on that corner now. So now I'm going to try that same operation again. And if you look at the grain on the face of this board, it looks like it's kind of doing this, which means I'm probably going to be going with the grain at this end and going against the grain at this end. So I'm going to have to switch gears in the middle of the board. If I don't, let's see what happens here. Here's 1/16. It's a little bit crunchy. It's tearing out a little bit. Let's go to a little bit bigger diameter in the 1/8. Actually, because the edge grain is coming out this way, that way, I'm actually tearing out right here. So if I want to avoid that, when I go to the next size up, and hopefully you get to this before you get to your final diameter of your roundover, this is 3/16. When you get to the spot where you're tearing out, you just need to pull the tool in the other direction and see where it wants to tear out. Yeah, it's pretty gnarly right there. So I'm going to go, oof, see that? Okay. Well, you can't win them all. And so there's my caveat. If you're going to use these cornering tools, you might do that if your grain isn't running out the way that you wished. So if you do have grain that's moving in and out, you have to be super careful to move in the right directions at the right times. Otherwise, it's not going to turn out so great. So in lieu of this, if you have grain that you don't think this is going to work on and you want to get that kind of quarter round, in that case I would use something like a block plane and do a lot of successive passes at different angles and then follow that up with some sandpaper. That's really the more foolproof way to do it, because with a block plane you have an adjustable mouth and you can tighten that down. You have a blade that kind of acts as its own chip breaker, and so you're much less likely to encounter issues like that with that. So those are the Veritas cornering tools. Great if the grain is cooperating, not so great if the grain is not cooperating. My next one trick pony is this little guy. This is the Veritas iron edge trimming plane. All it does is basically square the edge of a board to its face. And you might wonder, why don't you just use a joiner plane or a jack plane for that? And I'll show you why right now. They call this an iron edge trimming plane, and that to me is weird because, yeah, the body of this is made from iron, but so is the body of like every other hand plane I own. So I don't know why they have to put iron in the name of it, but whatever. So what this does is basically joint the edge of a board square to the face, and typically you would use a joiner plane for that, or jack plane or something like that. Where this comes in handy is really narrow stock, because if you have a jack plane on here, dump some shavings out of here, sometimes it can be kind of hard to balance your plane on the edge of a really skinny board like this. And the skinnier the edge, the harder it is to balance your plane on that edge and get a square edge. So rather than take a bazillion passes trying to get this edge square, you might want to just grab this iron edge trimming plane, and that'll take down at least the high spots if you started it with a bench plane. And next thing you know, you're taking a shaving full width from end to end, and you have a perfectly square little narrow edge like that. And this is good for things like drawer bottoms. And believe it or not, speaking of drawer bottoms, here's some plywood. This is just basically MDF veneered with walnut on one side. I might use this for drawer bottoms from time to time, and it has kind of a bandsawn edge on it. A lot of people don't realize this about hand planes. They think that they can only be used on solid wood, and that's silly. If you know how to sharpen blades, then you can use your blade on whatever you want. So I've used it on this MDF plenty. Take a little bit of a light shaving here. There we go. Obviously the shavings aren't really shavings when you're dealing with MDF. But that right there is a squeaky clean edge now. That is flat and dead square without me having to worry about getting this all balanced. So if you want to edge joint boards that are really thin like this, one of the best ways to get that edge square is the iron edge. Yeah, is that what it's called? No, iron edge trimming plane, yeah. And my third and final one-trick pony, the crown jewel of one-trick ponies in my opinion, is this guy right here. This is the Veritas side Rabbet plane. It really does one thing, and that one thing is to make a groove that you plowed a little bit too narrow, a little bit wider. And so you can adjust it super fine, like thousandths of an inch. And that is worth its weight in gold, in my opinion. When you need this tool, holy cow, does it save your bacon. Okay, so the side Rabbet plane is this funny looking thing here, and it doesn't seem aptly named to me. If I had a rabbet on the edge of a board and I wanted to widen that rabbet, well, in a case like that, I'd just use a shoulder plane like that, right? So where this tool really shines is if you've plowed a groove, and whether, it doesn't matter if you plowed the groove with a plow plane like I just did, or on the router table, or on a table saw. Every once in a while you'll put a groove in a board that's meant to accept a thin board, and that groove just ain't wide enough. And so you could go back to the table saw or the router table and try to fix that, but in my limited experience with power tools, that's an operation that is fraught with peril. You're just as liable to make your groove too wide at that point than just right. If you want to really be able to sneak up on the fit with a groove like this, that's where the side Rabbet plane is just awesome. What it has is two blades. They have a skew in them, and those blades are fit into the body of the plane like at an angle such that the blade is square to the cut. The corner of that blade, and I'll try to get a little closer picture of this, the corner of that blade is meant to be dubbed a little bit, in other words, dulled, rounded over, or whatever you want to call it, so that the corner of that blade doesn't dig too far into the bottom of your groove. And of course, another thing that will help with that is your depth stop. And so what I like to do is, when I go to set this up, loosen my depth stop, drop that blade into the groove until it hits the bottom, and push down my depth stop, holding the plane vertical, or as vertical as I can. Just like that. And that will help prevent you from digging too deep into the bottom of the groove as well. And now that it's all set up, I got my handle up on this side, I can widen the left side of this groove, teeny weeny bit. Just like that. So there's a single shaving off the wall of my groove there, and I can sneak up on the fit of whatever I'm sticking in that groove. And this is a tool that can work both sides of the groove. Basically, the whole thing is reversible. I'll just loosen up my depth stop, move it to the other side. The kind of palm handle on this is spring-loaded, such that you can just flip it over. And now I can work the other side of a groove. I have to get set up properly to do it, but I can work either side of the groove with that. So you can also adjust the location of a groove with the side rabbet plane. And so yeah, I haven't had to use this tool very often, but man, when I have, it has really, really saved me all kinds of grief in the shop. And if I could recommend any one-trick pony tool to add to your hand tool collection, it'd be one of these guys. So that's it. Those are my 3 one-trick ponies that I could easily recommend to people wanting to round out what is already a pretty complete hand tool collection. Certainly aren't the first hand planes I would buy, but they are certainly among the last. So now you may have gathered that I'm a fan of Veritas. A cursory glance of my tool chest would clue you in on that. That said, there are other manufacturers that make some of these planes as well. Both the edge trimming plane and the side rabbet plane, there are versions of by Lee Nielsen as well. I could easily recommend that brand name, and there are probably others as well. And if you're aware of them, feel free to put those in the comments. And of course, if you have a one-trick pony in your hand tool collection that you think is indispensable in those rare occasions when you actually need it, leave that in the comments as well. I'd be interested to hear it. You know, you can make an argument that any hand tool is a one-trick pony, but these especially, I think, are. And this one especially, my side rabbet plane, is really important to me, even though I don't use it very often. So that's it for today. I appreciate you watching. We'll catch you next time. Now, if you like what you saw here, please hit like and subscribe. It helped me out a lot. Also hit the little bell icon if you want to be notified anytime I release a new video. And if you didn't like what you saw here, keep it to yourself, pal. Or watch one of my other videos. You might like one of those. Thank you for watching.